Universes are notoriously tricky things. Even to the 99.998% of the Earth's population who aren't professional astrophysicists, such as yourself statistically, that might seem like a fairly obvious understatement. Right up there with oceans are quite damp and orgasms are reasonably pleasant. Some of you, however, the eagle-eyed amongst you, will have noticed that the statement itself doesn't actually make a lot of sense. How many universes, the grammatically astute amongst you might ask? Shouldn't there be just the one? That's what the word means, doesn't it? Uni means one, and verse means, You might flounder there for a moment while you consider the possibility of the suffix verse meaning the bit after the chorus. But on consideration, you would probably dismiss that answer quite quickly, given the fact that there can't have been anything before this particular verse, let alone a bit of a sing-song. Eventually, you would settle on a more logical definition. Doesn't it derive from the same word as version, you might eventually conclude? Universe means something like one version, doesn't it? There can't have been more than one of it. Not quite, your classically educated or possibly just speedily Googling friend might say. The suffix verse comes from the Latin versus, meaning to turn into or transform. The word universe actually literally translates as everything become one, not one version. You might then sneer at your friend's use of the words actually literally and protest, explaining that it surely amounts to the same bloody thing, doesn't it? The point being that there can only be one universe because the definition of the word itself rather precludes pluralization. As it turns out, however, the laws of physics outweigh the laws of grammar in the courtroom of creation, so your pedantic, nitpicking, quibbling little argument, grammatically correct though it might be, would be in error. If you thought there was only one universe, you would be badly mistaken. And you wouldn't be alone, not by an almost infinitely long chalk. Take Sir Isaac Newton, to pick an example not entirely at random. He was wrong about lots of things. A great man, undoubtedly. Philosopher, alchemist, mystic, mathematician, astronomer, inventor. But his ideas about the universe were still wrong. Close, but no banana. Especially not an epiphany-triggering banana that is destined to change the course of history when it falls out of the tree. It's generally agreed that Albert Einstein proved Newton wrong with a special theory of his. You know the one. Until that was also proven wrong, of course. Or rather, not quite wrong, but not quite right either. 30-odd years after E equals mc squared, when the quantum physics buds had really arrived on the scene and were busy trying to figure out the most efficient way to use that formula to blow the planet up, everything changed again. At least Newton had enjoyed a few hundred years on top of the imaginary heap of giant shoulders, but poor old Einstein was faced with competition to his theory almost immediately. What made it worse was the fact that he'd inadvertently helped to start the quantum revolution that ended up challenging his relativistic assertions in the very paper he'd published nearly 40 years earlier. What an idiot! It turns out that God, despite Albert's famous assertion to the contrary, does enjoy a good game of dice. In fact, craps is a very popular game amongst gods. All of a sudden there were interpretations of the facts. Many worlds, multiple extra dimensions, probabilistic existence, spooky entanglement, dead and alive felines going through both cat flaps simultaneously and interfering with themselves. Facts, it seemed, were now to be considered more like guidelines. The probability was that they were wrong anyway, or possibly even right and wrong at the same time. You begin to see the problem. The intellectual battles raged for decades. Nobody knew how to resolve the conflicts in the mathematics that would bring relativity and quantum mechanics together into a single theory. There is a reason for this, which has to do with the monstrous multi-billion-year manipulation of life on Earth by hidden alien powers, but that's another story. The reality of the situation, and the main reason why scientists have failed so far to come up with a truly consistent theory about what the universe is, why it's here, what makes it work, what shape it is, where it came from, or where it's going, is that the vast infinity we can barely see the beginning of when we peer at it through our telescopes is just one of an uncountable multitude. An almost comical collection of cosmoses exists simultaneously, and it's impossible to come up with the absolute theory of everything when you're stuck inside one of them unable to even see the edge, let alone any of the others. The surprising truth is that the totality of everything exists includes parallel universes, virtual universes, multiverses, antiverses, mirrorverses, megaverses, omniverses. It gets complicated very quickly, but the upshot is that we have absolutely no idea what's really going on out there. None at all. Not a hope. The totality of everything that really exists is called the cosmoi, which is shorter and easier to pronounce than cosmoses, and it contains universes so radically different from ours that they defy all attempts at description. They're just weird. Fussy old Goldilocks, for example, whilst perusing these universes for zones containing possible porridge purloining opportunities, if we may borrow a metaphor, would end up frustrated. Terminally frustrated in most cases. Forget Goldilocks zones, Goldilocks wouldn't even get a look in. Some of the other universes are quite similar to ours, with, extending the borrowed metaphor, just the right temperature of porridge for our needs. We would find that the beds are the right size, we'd fit comfortably into the chairs, and small families of large carnivorous mammals would only be noticeable by their absence. We might even find them homely if we could ever find a way to get to them, which is absolutely impossible, by the way. Scientists have proved it. Look at this other universe, for example. It's a small universe compared to most of the others, some of which are infinite at least, but we would find the laws of physics just about right here. The gluons glue the muons together in much the same way. The charge on the electron is almost identical, even after the tax has been paid. The mesons don't mess about, the Plancks are a similar length to ours, and so on. A modern-day scientist from our universe, however, would probably look at these constants and say, "No way, dude. That universe wouldn't hold together for a millisecond. Like, look at the strong nuclear force, bro. It's nearly 0.3% too strong. Way big. It would crush all matter out of existence at that magnitude, dude." And that just goes to show, once again, and has been previously intimated, just how bloody stupid humans can be. They would have been astounded, for example, to find out that this particular little universe is still under construction.